right, welcome everyone. We're just letting everyone in through the virtual waiting room. So if you could just give us a moment while everyone gets in and all their computers catch up and do all those things that they do. We've got a really exciting session today, which I'm looking forward to. So thank you very much for joining us again. It always takes a little while, William, for everyone to come in through these waiting rooms.
No problem. No problem.
So, all right. So what we'll there's still a few people coming in, but for those who listen regularly to our webinar, you know that I'm very keen on always supporting those who are on time. So we'll get cracking on the day. So I'll introduce. We've got a new face on the screen today. So we've got a gentleman by the name of William, who's with WhiteRook Cyber. Now, William's been in the cyber industry or in the IT industry for 18 years, and with a particular focus on cyber security and defence. We'll talk a little bit more about that. He's also a board member of the Queensland Law Society. So they're obviously trying to make sure that they've got the right experts around looking after things there. So I'll let William talk a little bit more about his expertise and where it is, because I can tell you a lot of today is going to run straight over my head. But welcome, William, and thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. Nice to meet you.
So just before we get into the cyber stuff, again, guys, I'd just like to give you a little bit of update of what's happening in the insolvency world. Probably one of the big things that I just want to remind everyone of is that we are seeing some incredible activity from the ATO at the moment. The ATO have become incredibly aggressive, a lot more aggressive than we have. Even on month, it seems to be getting a little bit more out of hand. You would have seen that there's, and from last month's webinar where we had the ATO on, they're very focused on not trying to get the Australian public and the Australian small business public particularly to realise that they're not nice people anymore. And that you need to pay your tax. And I've got a client just this week who received a DPN. The day before the DPN came out, he'd had garnishee notices issued on his bank accounts and his FPOS facilities. And then a couple of days later, the creditor stat demand arrived. So normally, each one of those events is a one trigger, and then they get to the next one and to the next one. Now, for everyone listening, they seem to really be using all of them at once and attacking very, very hard. So if you have clients that have outstanding debt, please be aware that they're attacking on all fronts at the moment. But talking about attacking, we're going to look at it in a very different light today. It's an area that I must admit, and I was saying to William just before you all joined us, that it's one of those areas that you need to look at, but sometimes it's such a rabbit hole of fear and worry that you don't actually want to open the door. So, William, if we can just start really broadly, when we talk cyber security and cyber threats and all that sort of thing, what are we talking about and what are we worried about?
I'll go broadly. So really, it's about data. We live in a data-driven world now, and cybersecurity is around protecting that data. We talk around three aspects of cybersecurity, which is the CIA triad, which is confidentiality, integrity, and assurance, and it's about maintaining those three. And really, it's being able to assure that your company and your staff and your stakeholders that their data or your data is as secure as you can make it. Data these days has a lot of value, from nation states to criminals. So everyone's after it. And how do you protect it?
Right. So, Will, again, we were talking just before we came online. Hank and I were in Adelaide 2 weeks ago for the Australian Bookkeepers Conference. They had a real focus on AI there, and they had a keynote speaker that came up and talked about using chat GDPs and all these other chatbots in the AI world, and how you can make your life so much better. But I'd heard that they're actually a really dangerous thing to use if you're putting in confidential information.
Yeah.
Can I get you to talk about that one? Because
Yeah, sure. Look, it's a massive topic, not just for cybersecurity, but for everybody at the moment. I think as a security professional, you know, we're trying to keep up as much as we can, but it's just moving super quick. You know, just recently we saw an instance where the Victoria Information Commissioner has prosecuted one of their own departments for putting confidential information into ChatGPT. I think it was one of the family or children's departments where they'd entered in a case history into ChatGPT, very sensitive information, which was a direct violation of the code, and they've been served a notice around that. I guess the underlying issue is when you look at AI, we don't know for certainty where the data goes. You know, as a security specialist or firm, if you're putting your data in there, we can't tell you where that data is going up or where it's ending. You know, and there's been a big case recently, and we were making some really great strides around sovereignty of data, saying that your data is in Australia, is under Australian laws and legislations. But when you start entering this information into the big large language models, we don't know where it's going to go. We're trying to kind of bring that back a little bit, you know, put some controls.
Absolutely staggering that you know that it's getting lost in this world, that you know,
Yes.
the online world, that it's just you got no clue where it's held or what it is. Like,
Correct.
it blows my mind, this whole cloud concept and sitting up there and. You know, and you were saying that you were talking to a professor of AI, and he was saying he doesn't even know where it goes. Like,
yeah, it is a very sophisticated technology, and there's just not enough information for us, but from a security point of view, to give a very concise answer how to stop it. I guess our biggest concern from an AI perspective, cyber, is how it can be misused. I mean, whenever something is made, it gets used for good and it gets used for bad. And this has been a story as old as time. You know, we talk around, you know, every weapon that's ever been designed always ends up in, you know, your enemy's hands at some point, from, you know, modern firearms to nuclear weapons. And this is exactly the same with AI. If we have a look at the sophistication of attacks in the last 12 months, it's been extraordinary. I mean, but gone are the days a few years ago where you could quickly look at a phishing email and there was a language kind of error there or pronunciation or the context was wrong. Within seconds now, you can take someone's email and get them to mimic the tone and the tempo of that email and create a very sophisticated phishing email, and it can take you seconds now. So we're in what we call an arms race now. For every technology that is being designed, we've got to come up with another one. So yeah, it's a brave new world.
Yeah, I think it's staggering. This guy did an example of putting a financial report into AI, asked it to put the financial statement, balance sheet, and profit and loss, put it into an AI chatbot, one of the chat GDPs or one of those.
Yep.
Asked for a report that talked about wanting to buy a new van in 12 months and what his potential tax issues would be. And literally within seconds, they had a 3-page report that clearly set out exactly, you know, a lot of good stuff. Some of it was just words that were filling in a page.
Yes.
But I reckon you talk about that language model thing, and he then said, "Yeah, have a look at this. Can you please rewrite the report in Steve Irwin language?" And the very first line of it's, "Hey, crikey, you're really on top of your finances today." And it's just like staggering. Like you can be hide as anyone now with the way it works. So it is really quite staggering.
I think with AI, if you distill what AI is amazing at, is it's extraordinarily good at data classification. That's what it was originally designed to do. So if you've got a lot of data and you need to classify it, AI can perform miracles, and it can, think around, the medical industry, any type of deep classification or kind of modeling. That's what that's what it can do. What it will also do, though, it can also create hallucinations. So an AI hallucination is when it doesn't know what it's talking about, but it will fill that in with what it thinks would be the best answer. And that's probably what you'll see a lot of time if you put something in there and say, make me this report. If you don't know what you're talking about, AI will fill that in to what it thinks it is. So yeah, and again, it's a big problem in the professional services industry at the moment. But if you completely allow an AI to write a report for you without giving it all the information it needs, it will fill it in, and you will need to proof it.
Well, we have enough trouble with some staff doing that, and making it up as they go along. Now the computers are going to do it for us as well.
Correct.
Look, we'll come a little bit back, like you could spend hours talking about AI and all the rest of it, but for all of our listeners here, it's more a little bit around the security, and for us, small business operators, and a lot of our listeners, clients are small business operators as well.
Yep.
I saw in the press, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, about how someone hijacked a vacuum cleaner.
Yep.
And they came in through the Wi-Fi and did whatever they do.
Yes.
Most of us all have guest Wi-Fi passwords, and we've got Wi-Fi stuff in place. Can you talk to what that really showed as a risk to us, and then what are the things that we need to think about?
Sure. So if you look at that Ecovacs hack a couple of weeks ago, that you could almost say that was a script kiddie. That was an unsophisticated attack against a home consumer item that didn't have the correct security controls in place from the manufacturing point of view. So there hasn't really been a standard that particular product had been built to from a cybersecurity point of view, which was easily hacked into and taken control of. And now, why that's a concern is that there's thousands and thousands of these devices being into the market. So from digital scales, anything that now connects to your Wi-Fi, if it hasn't got the security controls from the get-go, can be manipulated, can be hacked. Those vacuum cleaners, and these are these little robot vacuum cleaners that walk around the house, have got cameras and speakers. There were cases of these going into children's bedrooms, recording children sleeping. There was one where it was shouting racial profanity at people. So again, not sophisticated by any means. Any decent security expert can do it, but it just shows that there's not enough vigor in that kind of production or pre-production side, that it's moving too quickly without kind of understanding the security implications.
Well, look, I mean, for me, you wouldn't think that you'd need to worry about a cyber security for a vacuum cleaner, but after seeing that, I've got a wife and two teenage daughters at home, and if I had one of the automatic vacuums, my dog would probably kill it, but if I didn't, that's pretty dangerous what can be done. So and I must admit, I've thought about getting a vacuum cleaner for the office and just let it run around at night in the office and that sort of thing. So but now you go, well, maybe I shouldn't do that.
Well, look, if you can put, again, when a lot of these products, they come with default credentials. So, admin or password. A couple of, logging into the system, changing the password to something like a passphrase, making it at least a little bit harder for, your average hacker to take control. They will quickly lose interest and move on to the next one.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right, well, we'll try and get into a bit of surprising stats or examples of stuff that's going on that affect the small business market. So what would be some of the things that are a good way of shocking us into understanding just how scary it is?
Well, I'll give you a few here. So I'll go global, and then I'll go into the kind of the small to medium enterprise. So if you look at it from a global point of view of cybersecurity, I mean, there's not a day that goes by that you don't see cybersecurity mentioned in the paper. At the moment, we've got several fronts in the war. We've got a war in the Middle East with Israel and threats over there. You've got Russia and Ukraine. People go, well, what's that got to do with cyber? They're both very, very technologically advanced countries. And what we see typically from a warfare point of view is that in the battleground, criminals and nation states are refining their tools and their tactics. And inevitably, like I said earlier on, this will filter down to us. So if that happens, and it will happen, what we're going to see is a rapid increase in the sophistication and severity of cyber attacks. Now, locally, as in Australia, last year, the Australian Cybersecurity Centre released figures that losses just to cyber fraud in Australia was $2.74 billion. That roughly equated to one attack every 6 minutes. So again, you won't see a lot of these in the paper. The ones that you see have been severely hacked or have been outed by the media. So you're probably seeing the tip of the iceberg just from a media point of view. But for companies like us, where we see companies being breached all the time, it's at epidemic levels. Why that's important to small to medium businesses is, well, they don't have the same level of budget, staff, sophistication, dedicated security resources to be able to kind of keep the attackers at bay. A lot of small to medium businesses are using, say, a managed service provider, or they're using legacy technology. They haven't updated their firewall, or they haven't invested in the latest managed detection and response technologies, for example. So from an attacker's point of view, it's a very, very attractive target to go after. People, and it's again, no fault of their own. But if they're making it easy for people to attack, then they will attract attackers.
It's it's just a world that I really struggle to get my head around. But so when you're talking about sort of some of those attacks, when you explain, can you explain the concept to us about supply chain attacks? Simple terms, and provide how small and medium business are vulnerable to them.
Yeah, absolutely. So a supply chain attack is when you're attacked, but not directly. So it will be through your supplier. So if you're a business and you're doing business with another company, you could actually have a pretty good cyber hygiene or a good culture around cybersecurity. So you could do everything right. You could have your right firewall done. You could have told your employees, not to click on malicious things. So you've trained them well. You've got email filtering on. But if you're dealing with one of your suppliers who hasn't taken that quite seriously and they have access to your system, it's a very common tactic to come in through your supply chain. So a supply chain attack is very, very common, and it's basically it's just another step to come in sideways or through the back rather than attacking you straight on. And again, very, very high profile companies fall into this category all the time. They could spend millions on a cybersecurity uplift program, but if they've got one supplier there who has got access to a system, or they've got to log something in there, they can move what we call lateral movement. So they'll go from their system into your system, and once they've got bypassed the security controls, they're now inside your environment. So supply chain attacks are a real issue. So
just trying to help me understand that particularly from an accountant's point of view.
Sure.
Let's assume Xero actually has really good security, and I'm not putting them in any hot water of being a naughty boy.
Sure.
But if I'm using Xero on my computers in my office for a client, is that what you mean by supply chain? So therefore they can flow into our computers if they didn't have the right security?
Potentially, it could be. Maybe a better example would be, say you're a bookkeeper and you use a contractor, right? And that contractor, you give them access to your system when they're on the job for you. So you give them their username and password, right? Yeah. But your staff have got a company issued laptop with antivirus on, and it's locked down. They can't misuse it. But your contractor, he's using his home laptop, and his teenage kids use it as well, and they've gone on to a website. It could be just a normal website, but they've downloaded some malicious software.
Yeah.
By doing that and then logging into your system with the credentials that you've supplied, you're actually opening a pathway for them to get into your network.
Right. Okay.
You see?
Yeah.
So if you don't have the security controls in place to kind of stop them having access to your system, or putting them into a kind of a segregated area, and restricting kind of the access to your systems, I mean, these are your counter controls that you'd want to do.
Right.
But a lot of companies don't do that. Well, then you've created an avenue for attack there.
Yeah, so I know I've got, even in my firm, I've got a number of staff that work from home, and they generally prefer to use Apples. So
Sure.
they log into our data systems through their Apple computer, not our work computer. So
Yes.
that's a potential risk of a supply chain.
If you don't have, if you haven't had they haven't got the correct security controls in place, then potentially yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well,
but
I think all of us should have that from time to time.
I mean, that's just one area. I mean, from a small and medium business point of view, that the attacks that are common these days are ransomware, phishing, and social engineering. So those are those emails I mentioned before, saying we've got something that you need to click on, or you've got a delivery. Please click on here to get the package. That type of stuff. Business email compromise is extraordinarily prevalent in small to medium businesses. Also in a professional services email, that's where someone has got compromised credentials of email accounts. So they've got your username and your password. Now, if they've got that, then it makes it very, very tricky to firstly detect them, because they've come into your system as an authenticated user. So for all intents and purposes, actually, if I got your username and password and I logged into your system, I could effectively bypass all of your security controls, because if you don't have those the right controls in place, like multi-factor authentication, I've assumed your identity within the organization.
Yeah.
Now I've got context. I've got access to your emails. I know when who you're talking to, when you're transferring money, and so that particular attack vector is very, very commonly used in your industry.
Well, and I know I hate the two-factor authentication because it slows you down sometimes. But you see, I'll start to enjoy it now.
Yes.
So I know from previous chats with you that part of what your business does with WhiteRook is that you come in, and I thought this was fascinating. I reckon this would be an exciting part of your role, is that you get to come in and try and be the predator for someone.
Correct.
So I might engage you and say, right, you'll spend a day or two attacking our system and working out how you can get to us.
Correct.
When you look at businesses like mine and like a lot of our listeners, do you find that it's a fairly easy attack and you get to have a lot of fun, or is you find?
Yeah. So that's called offensive security, and the particular test you're talking there is called a penetration test. And yes, I mean, I can give you some scary examples. In the 10 years that we've been doing penetration testing, and the 20 years I've been in cyber, we have never not been able to get into a customer. We have 100% success of getting into companies. Wow. So I can't wait for the day where we haven't been able to breach companies, and usually it's in the first 10 to 15 minutes. There's just so many ways of doing it, and that's why I'm saying it's not a matter of if, it's when you get attacked. Now, don't forget, when we do this, and it's a very common practice in most industries. If you haven't heard of a penetration test, you probably will. It's probably the most effective engagement that you could have done against your organization, because what you're doing is getting experts using the same tools and tactics and methodologies as criminals would use to attack your systems. So you could be really, really confident in everything, but you've got a certain amount of cognitive bias. You would be blind to some of the attack methodologies that are being utilized these days. So a pen test will quickly work out, would your employees click on a phishing email? Have you got a server that hasn't got password protected? Is your email site incorrectly designed? Is your data shared locally? Do you have too many administration privileges that should be locked down? That report in itself is now being used by banks and insurance companies and even other businesses, saying if you want to do business with us, going back to that third-party supply chain attack, they will now want a copy of your last penetration test, because what it will do is actually give you a fair idea of your security maturity, and so you can fix the kind of the low-hanging fruit. to say, okay, wow, we had an open external IP address that we didn't lock down. We had one of our employees would click on anything. We needed to give him a little bit more training, for example, on that. We had one of the directors had full administration access for the entire IT environment. Does she need that? No, she doesn't. Reduce those restrictions. So so there's a lot of things like that.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's something that, by the sound of it, we're all going to need to do, but probably should do before someone else does it to us. Yeah.
Well, look, there's another element with that which we're starting to see, which is actually quite encouraging. That if you have a penetration test, you've got a very important report and artifact that you can talk to your insurers about to say, hey, listen, we take cyber seriously. You should be able to at least start to negotiate a better premium because you've undertaken a security assessment. And that's just one area. There's other things I think we'll talk around about aligning to frameworks. But again, I can't push how important a pen test is if you haven't had one done.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'd certainly never even thought about it, but I reckon it'd be a fun part of business. If you knew how to do it, it'd be a fun thing to do. Get paid to try and break into things.
Yeah.
The other thing that and I'll let you drive down where you want to go in just a minute, but at a really sort of technical stuff is that a lot of businesses are required to fit within frameworks.
Yeah.
Us as accountants, we've got certain rules and frameworks, and I know in the cyber world you've got things like Essential 8, ISO 27001.
Yep.
And NIST frameworks. What are they, and what does that mean for someone like me who's got no clue?
Yeah, sure. So we've all heard of the global standard ISO 9001, your quality assurance standard, right? What you talked about there are cybersecurity frameworks or a standard to align to. So the Australian government a while ago, they used to have the top 35 controls, and then they changed that to what they call the Essential 8. And these are the 8 controls that the Australian government, the Cybersecurity Centre says businesses should at least do at a minimum that would reduce your the success of a cyber attack by up into the 90%. If you just do these 8 controls, these controls are locking down your applications, patching your systems properly whenever there's an update, configuring Microsoft Office macros, doing user application hardening, so kind of getting the right controls in place, not having admin, for example, in some of the applications, restricting, again, administration access. So a lot of small businesses just allow their owners or their staff to have admin access just for ease of use. But the difficulty and the danger in that is that once if I was to put ourselves in from an offensive point of view, have got admin or domain admin, we've got complete control over your environment. There's nothing we can't do. Multi-factor authentication and backups make up the Essential 8. So MFA, we've done every time you log into banking, it's going to say put in your PIN number or provide another password. Again, it's a very common it's a very effective control. If someone has hacked into your system and taken your credentials, they might not have access to your MFA. Now, it's not 100% foolproof. People can bypass MFA, but again, you definitely need to have some form of MFA in your network.
Right. Okay.
At a minimum. So that's the Essential 8. If you go higher than that, we've got ISO 27001. Now that's a global cybersecurity standard. It's business wide, and we're seeing a huge uptake in this in Australia. It's going around the world. We're a little bit behind, but a lot of businesses are now either being required or will be required to be ISO 27001 certified. So that is looking at everything from your people, your process, your technology. You need to have robust policies and procedures and have those in play before you can say that you're an ISO 27001. And that needs to be done by an independent certifier. Now, once you've done that, it does it's not all bad. It's the benefits are huge. If you're doing a business with other businesses and you are ISO 27001 certified, we're seeing that you get almost preferential dealings. If you're going for tenders, to be able to say you're a 27001 certified company means that you do have robust security controls in place, and you should get weighting advantage for that. And yeah, so that's a big one. The other one you mentioned there is NIST, which is an American standard, and it kind of sits in between Essential 8 and 27001 in my opinion. It's a little bit easier to implement, and NIST kind of works around identifying data, protecting it, detecting it, responding, and recovering. And then there's another layer which is around governance. Now, you can't be certified against NIST. You can be aligned to NIST. Again, some companies who don't want to go the whole 27001, or they just don't have time or the budget, and they're finding Essential 8 a little bit too difficult to do, NIST is another framework.
Right. So, and I think you mentioned the whole budget to do it. I mean, it's something that, again, in small businesses, we've got limited resources, and the big companies, they can put staff on and whole teams and continue to deal with it. So, what are some of your suggestions or recommendations for a small business who can't afford to have an IT staff member? And how do you deal with that, and how do you sort of even pretend to be close to it?
Right. So there's a new standard out of the three that I've just mentioned, called SMB 1001, and I can share that with you, Ashley. You can share it to the audience here. And this has been specifically designed for small to medium businesses to do a quick questionnaire, answer a few questions, and it will quickly provide you with almost like a little roadmap of where you are on the cybersecurity maturity, and they will actually certify you from bronze all the way to diamond, so bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, and it will list all the controls you currently have, and it will show you what other ones you need to do to move to that next level. And again, the great thing about SMB 1001 is it's taken controls from all the three that I've just mentioned, and it kind of made it small to medium business friendly. Now, this is being rapidly adopted in that SME area because it's easy to understand. It can be easily implemented, and you can actually provide a certified certificate to your stakeholders or to whoever asks for it, to say what level are you in terms of your security maturity. Now, being a bronze, for example, means you've got, say, maybe 6 out of 10 controls, right? And that could be good just for normal businesses. But if you're going to work on more confidential information, personally identifiable information, you might say, hey, listen, we need to be gold. We've got to have a few more security controls in place. It will show you how to do that.
Right. And then, it's good that someone's actually thinking about small business, because I know for myself, when we look at it, it's such a mind-blowing concept, and and I'll lead into my next question, but it just seems too big for something as small as a firm like even for ourselves of 30, 35 staff. It just seems like too big a thing. But so with all of this rapid movement in technology, and from the simple thing of having an automated vacuum cleaner through to using ChatGPT, what are your thoughts or recommendations around managing this digital transformation that we're all meant to be going through and adopting? And like Hank and I got very excited about thinking about, can you use AI to help speed up a lot of processes? There's AI assistants now that can listen in on your meetings and then give you notes on the rest of it. They're all smart things to think about, but they all come with risk by the sound of it. So how do you manage that for a firm that wants to pick up some of these things and get some benefits, particularly in an environment where we've got businesses that are needing to find ways to find some extra margins and find a bit of extra profit because of the cost of living that we're dealing with?
I think at a high level, again, from a cybersecurity perspective, we're interested in helping businesses respond and recover from a cyber incident, and those are two very different things. When we deal with companies who have been breached from an incident point of view, it's very easy after the fact to go, what could we have done better? What led to this kind of this attack? Why a lot of companies were going, well, we'll never get attacked, and when they do, they were like, well, why did they pick us up? Why did they pick this little business? I mean, you mentioned I work on the Queensland Law Society Cyber team there, looking after every law firm in Australia. We're trying to help the law firms in Queensland protect themselves, because they are very attractive targets. If you look at law firms, for example, they've got confidential information, they've got personally identifiable information. If they're a criminal law firm, they've got very sensitive data. All of those make criminals extremely happy. We can hold you for ransom, we can extort you. There's so much they get. We could sell that data on the dark web, so it's nice and easy. And pretty much, if you're a small to medium business, I can pretty much guarantee you don't have the best kind of security team in place to kind of detect and respond to that type of attack. So what we're trying to say to businesses is how are you prepared to respond to an attack? How will your business, almost like an immunity response, like a virus attacking you? What are you going to do to do that? So there's things in place that we talk to businesses all the time. One of them is what we call a tabletop exercise. Now this is this has its origin back in the defense days, and I've been doing them for a very long time. And you look at you could call it wargaming, where you sit your business and your business heads or your business stakeholders around the table, and you run through a simulated attack. You say, right, you sit down there, it's 8 o'clock on a Monday, you've come in, you turn your computer on, nothing works, and all of a sudden your phone rings saying, we've locked you out of your system, all your data has been encrypted, we've deleted all your backups, we want $1 million. What are you going to do? So to be able to sit down and work through that logically, because a lot of the times when we get brought into companies, their responses to an attack, people are making very serious decisions under enormous pressure. The phone's ringing, media's calling, you've got your customers demanding explanations. So to be able to go through in a safe environment one of these attacks is extremely beneficial. So who will you call? Have you got your lawyers ready? Do you have a prepared media statement? Have you got a backup plan? Have you tested your backup plan, for example? How long can your business survive without connectivity? Who will you call? Have you got the right insurers? Have you got your insurer's mobile number? It's all these things that a tabletop exercise will bring out and allow you to create, or if you haven't, to create or practice what we call an incident response plan. Right. And that's the little plan that when a small business or any type of business really is attacked, you bring out the folder and you're like, right, team, this is what we're going to do. You delegate, you bring in, you contain the story, and you basically go through a pre-prepared plan against this attack. So that's probably, again, we don't see nearly enough businesses preparing for what we say is an inevitability. Now's the time. And then there's things that you can do to harden your environment. We've talked about penetration testing. A pen test, a good pen test and report will hopefully stop you being attacked in the first place. It would have shut down those little red flags on the internet that say, "Hey, I'm an attractive target." So that Then there's other things we can talk around. There's things like awareness and training of staff. Again, what we'd like to see as an industry is everyone does their first aid certificate training or their fire safety. We want cyber at the same thing, and the reason why we want to do that is because it's not just the IT team that are going to be attacked. Everyone kind of lumps cyber with IT. It couldn't be further from the truth. Everyone has access to the system these days, whether it's the cleaner to the managing director. All we need is one of your employees to click on a link, just one. It could be anybody. So the most junior or the most senior, if they don't have an understanding of the risk of clicking on emails or putting their credentials into platforms that they shouldn't, they can actually represent probably the biggest risk to an organization.
Right. Yeah, so a big thing is awareness training is probably a pretty critical thing to be looking at. Yeah,
and practice.
And yeah, well, and I think that's like you talk about media responses and all that sort of stuff. Like, my first thought is, that's for a big business. If I got shut down today, I've got a drama that I can't do my work, but I'm not going to have to worry about media. But I would imagine it's happening to businesses at this smaller size. And yes, I may not have to go to the media, but the other 50 things are probably just as relevant.
Yeah, or the media will come to you. Look, cyber is newsworthy, unfortunately or fortunately, whichever way you want to look at it. It does present a story. Yeah. So if you are not prepared to have a statement, it can put you in a really bad position. In some ways, we've got clients who have overreacted and gone to the media proactively, and they meant well, but they didn't need to do it. The threat had been contained. That we'd done the forensics investigation, the business was back up, but they'd gone to the media, they'd spoken to all their customers, their reputation was damaged, they'd volunteered to do credit monitoring, they didn't have to do any of that. So we actually say, and there's a good saying there, that how you handle a cyber incident is just as important as the cyber incident itself. If that makes sense. How you handle, how you communicate. And we say, there's three elements to that. You've got to avoid becoming a story, you've got to be able to contain the narrative, and you've got to protect yourself and your brand as well, and your clients. So so having, again, pre-prepared statements to be able to say, we take this very seriously, we're investigating, we're working with professionals. That's it.
Right. Thank you. And we did have a question about what was the name of that certificate framework for the small business, but it's SMB 111.
Correct.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Right. Stella in the background there, and obviously the re-listener is taking much better notes than me, so she answered that question. Look, we are getting towards the end. It's probably something that we could spend all day talking about, and some of the war stories, no doubt, would be very fascinating. One thing is, and a challenge for small businesses, obtaining the funding and resources to address these type of threats. So, have you got any insight on that for all of us here?
Yeah, absolutely. Look. In Australia, there is a shortage of, I think it's just over now 30,000 placements for cybersecurity. So there is a huge shortage of security professionals, which has kind of led to, again, Australia being an attractive target. There's just not enough people. With that shortage, is people who now demand a significant salary and usually move on quite quickly. So what that's actually had, we've had to adapt as an industry, and started to offer our services around what we call SOC, or security operations, so managed detection, monitoring, response type of thing. And what that is to allow companies to allow. Or it's almost like a managed security service. They can have a dedicated team of people that are looking after their environment 24/7, and that if something did happen, you would get a call to say, hey, we've detected something. And really, that's where we see the industry moving at a very, very quick rate now, because most businesses, even mid-tier businesses, can't afford to have a dedicated full-time security team in-house. By the time you've trained them, they've got used to the environment, they may move on, for example. So for less than the price of a full-time resource these days, you can get a proper security operations center that has eyes on glass on your network, on your people, and really the value in that at its core is to be able to quickly say, yes, we've been compromised, and shut that down as quick as possible. It's that remediation, it's that detection and that response.
Right. William, it's been absolutely fascinating, and my mind is blown to the extent that we could have 5 or 6 conversations on this, and no doubt we'll have some more work that we'll look at doing within Jonge ourselves, because I think there's still holes that we've got, even though we work with you and the team in the past through some other acquaintances.
Yep.
I will open up quickly for questions if there's anything. But guys, I mean, we could talk for 20 million years on this stuff, so we're going to have to be very careful in the detail. Here's a really good one. We talk about having the right security and the right people in place. How do you work out who's reputable to do your monitoring?
Yeah, well, that's a really good question, actually. Look, we've always tried to say, I want to say there's a lot of people coming into the market, obviously, at the moment. I like to say to deal with Australian businesses. We've seen a lot of people coming in from overseas, and that itself presents a risk. If you're looking at companies, you're looking at who are their current clients, and do they have the right cybersecurity certifications to do that? So it's a lot of us in the industry. There's industry recognized certifications. And that's probably a quick and easy one to do. And then there's the old-fashioned way of asking for references. I think if you're wanting to do your due diligence, is to say give us a couple of customers who'd be willing to kind of provide a reference.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're looking at getting them to do a penetration test, you want to make sure there's someone reputable. Otherwise, you're really opening the door for them.
Correct. And again, for penetration test, for example, I would definitely ask, do you test to, certain frameworks? So pen testing is a very powerful, very efficient one. But yes, it does need to be done by certified professionals in accordance to globally accepted standards.
Yeah. Okay. And Marina's put up your contact details. Look, we will. I'll get Stella in the background to put up William's website, which is whiterookcyber.com.au, and you can certainly reach out to William through the website and the connections that they've got there. There it is. It's up for everyone. Fascinating talk. Thank you very much, William. We'll put our little our poll up now for everyone just to respond to, and thank you very much for being involved. William, I can't thank you enough. I think it's a fascinating world, and there's probably more from my point of view, there's more questions than there are answers in how it all works and what's great and what's not. Do you have any final words that you'd like to say to our listeners?
No, look, thank you. I guess, we've for so long, we've struggled to get people to attend, and it's a new world for us in cyber. The industry has completely inverted itself. I mean, 10 years ago, I would struggle to get appointments to meet to people to talk around cybersecurity. But I mean, there's just so much new legislation and requirements for directors and companies these days. And I think, if you look at the Privacy Act, Corporations Act, Telecommunications Act, Critical Infrastructure Act, everything now has a cyber element. And, we're starting to get great engagement from the top down. So at the moment, we've never seen such board engagement at the moment, saying, directors are now personally liable for their cybersecurity of their company and their staff. And we've started to see change kind of go from the top down. So we've had this bottom-up approach for the last decade. It's flipped over. So no, thank you. Thank you everyone attending. I think, the more we can kind of share the message, the better we can be.
And it's Cyber Security Month as well. So
it is indeed.
We timed that very well.
Indeed.
One other comment here. Yes, there from Cherie, there was a staggering amount of information, and we'll need to re-watch it. Yes, these recordings will be put up on our YouTube channel, on our website, as soon as Stella does her magic in the background. And depending on, although we try and keep the morning and the afternoon relatively the same, there are, if it's worthwhile, we'll put both sessions up on our website for this quarter or for this month. So you will be able to look at them all back, and you'll get emails to let you know when that's all available. All right. Well, thank you, William. Thank you again, everyone listening. We'll go back to next month. We'll be doing a little bit of a wrap up of the year. Some of the big things that we're seeing, a few more case study information just around the insolvency. But thank you again for joining us this month. It's been a great pleasure having you on. and have a great day. All right.
Thank you, Rob. Bye.
Everyone. Bye.